I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Malcolm Homeline, the gossip, is here. Malcolm, have you got your gossip hat on?
Okay.
Okay, here
Ready.
we go.
My gossip
Malcolm,
yarmulke. Yeah.
for many years, you have been an admirer and an associate of Mrs. Clinton, the senator from New York. That was very important when she represented the interests of the people of New York, and before that as a First Lady. Now, as the Secretary of State, she's very much involved in the Middle East and the peace in the areas that you and I care a great deal about. But there's new and a fresh report tonight, which I mentioned Mrs. Clinton's people have denied 100%. So therefore, there's merit to it, that she is entertaining the idea of going to the World Bank. Does that sound credible to you, Malcolm? Does that sound in proportion to her preparations?
Yeah, just one qualification. I wouldn't say close since she's become secretary, which is another subject for another time. But this is something that has been muted for quite a while. And, you know, when she made the announcement recently that she would not run, she won't consider running, she's not going to be in the next administration, nobody resigns 2 years in advance if you don't intend to leave, I think. And somebody, especially somebody as seasoned a political operative as Hillary Clinton is. So I think that already raised many suspicions. And the talk has been for a while that she wants to be a university president, one of the prestigious universities. If you remember Eisenhower, others did it. And if not, the World Bank. She needs a platform, one that would enable her to travel. She clearly, by all accounts, is tired of what she is doing. And, you know, in this administration, the relationships aren't always the best that they could be.
Okay, so I'm going to say Malcolm, the gossip hat has delivered. We're going to move on to a subject that
To
has
real stuff.
Much more substance, which is to worry about Iran. The reports of it speeding up its nuclear fuel cycle, menace provocation these last days. Do you put any weight to them, Malcolm, or is this press release in a slow news hole?
No, this is very serious. If you remember, at least a month ago, we talked about this new project near Qums, and that would become the major facility for enriching uranium, that it would eclipse Natanz, and that's the very same site that the media was reporting today. The IEA earlier this week came out with confirmation of some of the reports that they have been leading up to, indicating the degree to which they believe Iran is advanced on their weapons program, and indicated that there may be additional facilities. They have not visited the site, obviously, and there are only aerial photos. It's being built in a mountain. It's going to be very hard to reach. The Natanz is in a much more open area in the desert. This will be an obscure facility, and it's part of the process that Iran has been engaged in to triplicate every facility so that even if some are taken out, they would be able to continue. It also is a slap in the face at the Western world, saying that despite the increased sanctions, despite all the other measures that have been taken, they're going to escalate their nuclear weapons program. And this clearly has been interpreted, and even some of those who tried to defend Iran earlier are saying that this is clearly an indication of a program leading to weapons, not for peaceful purposes.
A colleague of ours, Reza Khalili, that's a pseudonym, Time to Betray, a book that has been given awards and great bona fides, is his time working for the CIA to report on the nuclear criminals and the IRGC. He has a report up on his website and has written for Fox News that Iran, the supreme leader, is given the go-ahead for a nuclear test in 2012, as soon as possible. Right. And that report, although it sounds like an alarmist report, is consistent with all this other documentation. One of the things I like about interpreting Iran is they say what they're going to do and then they do it.
That's right, and that's part of the problem. As I've said for many years, people dismiss Ahmadinejad. He says what he means what he says. Dictators tell the truth. They tell you what they're going to do, just people don't believe him. Leaders of democracies lie, but dictators tell the truth. And he has been telling us all along what they're doing and what their intention is, and people don't take it seriously. And despite the split, which continues between Ahmadinejad and the Khamenei, and it seems this week Khamenei may have gotten more of an upper hand, the IRGC being the key power broker in this situation. One of the moves that took place, though, which is clearly an Ahmadinejad move with the IRGC, is that they sent submarines into the Red Sea. They arrived in the Gulf of Aden. They have had 3 submarines that have operated in the Persian Gulf now, and they launched 4 more of their own, which are more for local use, and they've sent others now into the Red Sea. saying they're studying the seabed, but they're also monitoring ship movements.
Right.
This is a very provocative act, and it's one that the Western powers, including the United States, which with the aircraft carriers there, can't dismiss. So I think this is a very serious move that will have repercussions in the near future.
I want to connect this to a report that we've both heard of a sense of gloom in the region because of Tehran's aggression. The anticipation in Riyadh that the battle in Bahrain is not the end, that it's the beginning of a contest, and that Tehran is fueled by a sense of glory and defeatism at the same time, a fatalistic sense that whatever's going to happen, it's in the hands of some higher being, or it's all written down. Whatever the fatalistic interpretation, do you hear these same things, Malcolm, that Iran seems to have crossed a line into throwing itself into anarchy?
Well, Ahmadinejad certainly has, and we see it in many regards. Look, they look at the defeat of the leader of Tunisia and the leader of Egypt, two perennial enemies and challengers to their dominance, and they see this as also a sign that of their ultimate destiny. He has moved ahead with his move towards hegemony. We see that he's still making trouble in Bahrain. We saw that recent reports, even in the last couple of days, about this. I think that he interprets it exactly that way, and they're looking at this as their destiny. He does, at least. Khamenei may be, as the religious leader, may be a little bit more realistic than Ahmadinejad in this regard.
And again, I connect this to Syria, that we do not see into Syria. We have a report tonight from the outside, from the BBC, this is Europe reporting information that we've had for some time, that the UN is going to sanction Syria, for the IAEA, for its violations of the Non-Proliferation Treaty because of that facility that Israel attacked, thankfully, in September of 2007. Now, it seems a little out of phase, but in any event, Syria is unstable. It's now a pariah of nations. It's a failed state. Iran, I asked Mike Singh, I ask you, Malcolm, connecting this with our information about the Iranian submarines in the Red Sea, the intention to test a nuclear weapon in 2012, which would, I think, open the door to Hades. All of this points to the fact that Syria, if it collapses, is going to trigger these events, that they're not waiting, that they're anticipating the collapse.
I think they do anticipate, or try to anticipate, the options. They're trying to bolster him right now because he is their land bridge. As Mike said, that there are alternative routes, but it doesn't matter. They've invested a lot in Syria. They need this Syrian bridge in terms of control to Hezbollah and for other reasons. It's also part of his goal for hegemony, that if you have a Sunni state that rejects Iran emerge in Syria, he has whatever he has in Iraq, and you see some rebellion against Iranian influence in Iraq, but to get to Lebanon, which is his base on the Mediterranean. These are essential components for his hegemony in the region. What he looks at also, and he's playing an increasing role in Egypt, and we understand that Iranian money is going into Egypt. He has this windfall profit because of the price of oil. He's spending more in South America, much more in Africa, but also in Egypt. And one of the great fears that has emerged is this growing role in Egypt. Egypt's economy is in collapse. We understand it's going to drop 2.5% this year.
There's no tourism. There's violence in the streets.
$1 billion a year, tourism, crime rampant, no police. We've identified 1,000 Al-Qaeda members of people, terrorists. The United States has asked them to find 40,000 prisoners escaped. For them to find these thousands is going to be a hell of a job. I don't know if it's even feasible. The generals are looking just to get out. The elections may be postponed a little bit again. Because they know that what will happen. The Muslim Brotherhood is playing a more and more assertive role.
The Muslims have found a dummy party called the Justice and Peace Party or something.
Well, they always were called that, but what they did is they gave them official recognition now.
Right.
So they've made
and
them
they
a
put
legal
up two
party.
candidates for president. So I'm now willing to entertain that they might be going for it, Malcolm.
Yeah. Now, usually that's an unusual move because all along they had said they wouldn't, and in most elections they don't try to take because they don't want responsibility. It may be here that they are seeing that without that, they can't exercise the influence they want.
All of this adds up, and now we're in Egypt. All of this adds up to increasing instability along the Gaza border. We had reports a week ago the Gaza border was open, and now an aberrant report from someone we respect to deal, a source, that Cairo is asking for help in some fashion with the IDF or in cooperating in some fashion at the border because of what you'd say was outlawry. Do you credit this, Malcolm, that the IDF could work with Cairo even in this advanced stage of confrontation?
Well, with the generals, yes. The generals have a long-standing personal relationships with a lot of the generals in Israel. They worked with them over the years. They talk about them by first name. They can rattle off all the members of Israel's general staff, which I couldn't, but they could. So, yes, but the first test has come now with the crossing. They closed the crossing because they saw that it wasn't a good move. Now they've reached an agreement with Hamas where they will allow 400 or 500 people a day to cross. But they still not opened it for goods. The question is what will happen after the generals give up. This is where the IDF and Egyptians have common interests, common goals, that is to contain the terrorists. They are afraid of losing Sinai. It's the greatest fear the generals have. It's the number one concern on Israel's part, where Al-Qaeda, working with the Bedouin, working with Iran, and Hamas are going to take over and try to establish an Islamist state.
Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents. I'm John Batchelor.